Hello, this is Bobby at Copel TV Repair, and today I'm going to make a video about something that I cannot remember having covered ever before, even though it does come up every now and then. In repairs, I've seen the topic in other places, although I don't spend a lot of time watching really, but anyhow, today's topic is rust. And I don't know if the rust is actually the proper name for this because it is something very similar to us, and what happens is the copper that makes the tracks that are used for making circuits on the PCBs, and which are covered with a coating layer to protect them exactly from rust and whatever other processes may be in it. The copper starts getting eaten and rusting, again, if that is the proper word for it, under the layer. And the way that usually happens, and the way you can tell it rather, is those really dark areas that looks like spots and that cannot be cleaned, and they look very uneven, exactly like you can see it here. Or those dark spots, usually it starts developing around the edges of a track. So you can see this here. Let me put it on autofocus. This here is one place where it's definitely being eaten under. And when you see a dark spot like that, you can never really know for sure whether it hasn't been eaten deeply enough. Usually those places are much easier to clean. If you scratch over, it almost immediately exposes a rough track. Where here it's going to be a whole lot easier. See a single track, I'm pushing it, still only making a single track, where here one push takes the whole thing away, because it's being eaten on both sides. And sometimes when you do what I'm doing here, you find out that the whole bottom of the track is actually eaten through, meaning there is no electrical connection between the left and the right side. And I'm not sure that this would have happened here, but let's say on a tiny track, here's another place. Here you can see one place where we've cleaned a place like that. Let me see, where was that tiny track that we were thinking that it may happen. Let me get a close-up. This is one place here that is a candidate for that. You can see pretty bad rusting as well. So if I clean up, it may turn out that there is no, wait, there is no connection. It looks like there is a connection. Yeah, there is a connection here. And there may not be when I scrape the whole thing. The problem really does happen on some very tiny tracks, so let me look on the side and see where there was one particular, yeah, this one, okay. So can you see how this is normal green here and gets darkish from here all the way, and particularly here and here, around the corner and here, and goes all the way up. This is a tiny track. This is about 1 millimeter thick. And of course, they're much tinier in smartphones and tablets and other equipment where this also is a problem. It is so much easier for this to get really terminated from being eaten. The reason those things happen is because the coating is not perfect, and humidity and other factors start make their way through and start eating. And when I see a board like that, in condition like that, I usually tell people, go and replace it. That is the best thing to do, because there are so many smaller places. The only solution for that is to identify all those places, clean up through all of them, sometimes make connections from here to here, because this may have been eaten through. Again, it does happen that the problems usually can happen on those tinier traces, where it's so much easier to lose 1 millimeter, where on a large thing like that, even though it can happen here as well, this whole thing from top to bottom can be eaten. And so there may be no connection from here to here, even though if that happens on a large tracks that usually tend to carry more current. If it's ground, it's usually not that big of a deal, because usually the other side also is connected somehow through the common ground. But if this is a high voltage, let's say the rectified AC 160 or the PFC 390, if this one is eaten, there will usually be a lot of arcing happening. You can tell by other means. But those tiny ones, like this, That may not necessarily be. This is also a rectifier. This also carries a higher voltage, but because of the series of resistors, the current here and the voltage will be very small. There will be no arcing, but if it's eaten, it will just terminate the feedback or the power, low power as it might be, that this rectifier is providing. And the board just wouldn't work. And so, whenever such a board with many such defects comes to here, I usually tell people, listen, it is best to have it replaced rather than have it repaired, because God only knows what I might have missed somewhere, not to mention all the labor that is involved into identifying and then manually patching all those places and then recoding on top of that. The way to go is usually replacing those boards. Sometimes it is okay to repair, but I've seen Louis Rossmann comment on people spilling and, similar issues that can be repaired. The right thing to do, again, in my opinion, is replacing, not repairing, especially for boards like that are $20 or $40, not several hundred. But even if they were several hundred, if it has made it to so many places like here, there is a good chance that it would have made it to more, and a couple of months down the line in the same environment, another thing will happen. Chances are it may, last another 2, 3, 4 years. You don't know, especially depending on how much effort is put into identifying, covering, recoating the whole thing. So with a proper effort, maybe. Economically, it's probably not viable. And if it's something smaller, like a PC board like a laptop board or a phone board, corrosion like that, it's usually, for me, it is a total loss. And if Apple says so, I would agree with them. All that said, hope you did learn something new. And respect to Luis if I'm carrying this phrase. It's not on purpose. This is just to illustrate this particular customer, and I'm just making it, the person who sent that board, and I'm just making it a common note for everyone. Chemical spills, very much like with cars, to me, is a strong indication, not necessarily a matter of life and death. And yeah, okay, I can fix one board, but common sense says if it has made it to 10 different places, and especially if the board is more dense, the right thing to do is don't try to fix it. You're going to have more troubles. Even if you can fix it, even if it seems that you can fix it, the right thing to do for the customer in such cases, chemical damage, rusting, water, spillage, go for a new one. Best of luck in your repairs. Hope you learned something. Thanks.